Well, you can see his title there. Co-CEO, President, Co-founder of GestureTek. I've officially known Vincent for about 14 years. I'm not going to necessarily go through the previous company name. It's been there. He's a pioneer in gesture-controlled technology. And I may have met him actually even before that when we both attended University of Waterloo in the early 80s, but can't confirm that, so I'm not going to make that claim. Now, one of the interesting things about a little over 13 years ago, he was involved in the first live on the internet broadcast wedding using gesture control, where it was a nice Jewish wedding, and I got to break a virtual Jewish glass. So that was part of my claim to fame in connection to Vincent. And on that note, I'm going to let Vincent take over. We're going to keep questions for the end. We do have receptions, so Vincent's going to be joining us at the reception, so if you have questions, catch them there.
Very nice. Thanks, Alan. Just want to start to say I really enjoyed the day. I really enjoyed being here and listening to all the speakers, and I certainly learned a lot. It was very enjoyable and very engaging. So that was quite good, and I really enjoyed Alan's opening keynote. I'm kind of taking off from the same aspect that Alan talked about, past, present, and future of social media. Well, I'm looking at past, present, and future of gesture technology and as how that applies as the future of social media goes forward. So a lot of this is sort of future looking as to the evolution of what will happen with social media. So social media, the phenomena of social media is a long time in the making. Of course, we could go back to the cave paintings and call it distant drums, but we know that would take forever. So we'll just jump ahead some 50,000 years to the time we first got our hands on personal computers. And from that point on, not only did computing power begin to become democratized, but so did media. And right away we started learning ways to collect information and share that digital information. And as our computing power evolved, as well as our communication networks, so did the nature of the types of media and information we could collect and share. Well, the phenomena of social media, the revolution that's happened in the last decade, has not just been about having access to that creation of an endless stream of information, media, and experiences that we can funnel into our lives and out of our lives and have the tools to be part of that creation. It's also been about the proliferation of computers and displays and gadgets and devices with which we can access it. If you cannot manage to get onto one of the millions upon millions of interactive network displays that you might potentially find in virtually every room of your house or in your car or where you work or in your educational institutions, then you of course can find one somewhere else, because they're proliferating rapidly at an incredible amount of speed. That might be to where we work, to where we shop, to where we work out, to where we play, to our government facilities, to our hospitality facilities, to our transportation facilities, to our entertainment facilities. There are interactive displays everywhere that we can use. That number right now is, well, including, of course, if you can get on one there, or you can't get on one, or you can't get on one wherever you are. Of course, you can pull out one of the multiple types of mobile devices that you might be carrying with you. And that total number of connected devices right now onto the internet is calculated at 1.35 billion. So there's a lot out there. The point is that we are surrounded by a continuing evolution of computer displays with which to access this cornucopia of social media that's being produced on a minute by minute, if not second by fraction of a second basis. So screens everywhere in our lives. Well, the other aspect of social media in terms of the human experience of it that has been an influencing factor and has been evolving all along and has been an influencing factor up to now, but will continue and become even more so in the future, is the nature of how we are able to interface, to actually interact with that media and those displays. This is where gesture control comes in, because it's gesture control, along with a number of other interfaces like voice control, that are going to allow us a more natural user interface with which to reach deeper and more dynamically into these networked cyber worlds for our social media experience. And just as a definition in terms of gesture control, that runs the gamut of anything other than just pure clicking. When we're using our mobile phones and we're making gesture-like movements, things we're scrolling, we're swiping, anything like that, all the way up to pointing, controlling, full body gesture control, using our bodies and any part of that. So essentially the progress of gesture control to the forefront of mainstream computing has been a long and a destined journey, very much like social media. We are social creatures living in dynamic bodies that we have learned to do amazing things with. And so it's only natural that eventually we would be using our full bodies to interface with computers, or at least that's the way I saw it 30 years ago when I started thinking about it, as natural as we'd be using those computers to be communicating with each other around the world with social media. This chart of the progression of interfaces might look pretty straightforward, but it actually is not this simple. In fact, full body, immersive gesture control has come from a completely different track. Our computers came from calculators and typewriters, and the interfaces that we designed early for those, like mice and keyboards, were appropriate. The vision, we'll say, of gesture control, full body immersive gesture control, came from a completely different set of, we'll call it mindset. If I try to think of a metaphor for what archetype in us it came from essentially the dancer in us all, that part of us that loves the experience of exploring, engaging, and discovering our bodies and what we can do with them. And it was this vision of trying to create something, invent something that we could use our full bodies to interface with our computers that drove Francis McDougall and myself back in the early 1980s to create an interface, in this case a video gesture control interface for experiencing our bodies with computers. You know, we had seen the progression of keyboards and mice and joysticks as, you know, sort of forcing the user to sit in front of their computer, spending greater and greater amounts of time just sitting using their hands. And as computing was becoming more and more a part of our lives, leading to a more sedentary lifestyle, we wanted to invent a technology that would enhance our embodiment, allowing us to use our bodies for, you know, to interface with our computers for any aspect or all aspects of our lives. And so what we essentially did is we looked at that and we said, you know, what can we do? What can we create? And the first thing we said was let's create something that's a new artistic medium first, as the first example of that technology. And we wanted to create something that people could literally step into and play and you know, express themselves. I'm probably going to bring the audio down a bit on this. Yeah, it's probably good for all of it. The idea that they could play and step in and express themselves as artists. And as an artist myself, and a dancer and a musician and a juggler, I was looking to create a unique new performance instrument that would allow the user to step into the virtual landscape and basically be unencumbered, not having to wear or hold or touch anything, be able to be free like a dancer to interact with the system. We thought it through, thought of the video camera as the natural interface. So we worked on that. We created something that we invented that we called video gesture control, and by extension, full body immersive video gesture control, because that's actually what we created first, putting the user right into the computer as the experience that they would have with that. What we ended up coming up with would change the nature of how we physically engage physically with our computing devices. This looks a little dramatic, but actually this is one of the first applications that we created with the technology. They were very dramatic back then. So it's been 25 years now of inventing, pioneering, and evangelizing the power of video gesture control, and today we're actually starting to see that power take off. The Kinect 3D gesture camera is the classic success story in terms of this technology. Of course, back then we had to find a computer that was affordable, it could do this, was under $500,000. It took us till 1985. The Amiga computer had hit the market. With that, we were able to create a very simple version of the technology. And we started a company called the Vivid Group, which later became known as GestureTek. And that this initial technology would just put the user's image as a silhouette. It was the computer itself, 32 colors, low resolution. But the amazing thing was that this computer would let us do this in real time. The user's image could interact, touch things, they would react instantly in real time. And that was the most important thing, because not only were you interacting with it, but you were on the screen and you saw yourself, you wanted to see that things reacted. Of course, that's still important today for all technologies. Well, we got lucky. Soon we were leading-edge interactive multimedia artists doing hundreds of installations around the world in galleries, media festivals, museums, science centers, world expos, and even being heralded by the Smithsonian Institute in their new Information Age Gallery in 1989 as the final installation of the future of computer interfaces. They were quite smart back then. But it was actually a networked system. In other words, two different locations in the Smithsonian, people could step in front of monitors and see each other and step into the same virtual world and interact with each other. It wasn't over video conferencing, it was just like long lines. But it was essentially foretelling what, the nature of what the technology would be. Well, it took us until 1991 until we had a fully dynamic virtual world system in which we could track all aspects of the user's body. There's each part of the body, the angle, speed, trajectory with which it was moving, and be able to map that onto the virtual world so it reacted accordingly. So now people could touch things, but they could also push, pull, pick up, bounce, throw objects, all while being able to navigate the virtual world by just leaning in the direction that they wanted to travel in. Well, this ability to track the user's speed, agility, and flexibility led to a proliferation of immersive video games. And very absorbing, very engaging, very physical, and people really loved it. People got lost in it. So it's this same initial video gesture control technology, these strange immersive video games, and essentially the 3D gesture control camera, 3D technology using 3D depth cameras that we invented in 2000 that are the basis of the Kinect 3D gesture camera that we're seeing today, and the second generation of these types of applications that are now coming to the market. But this is all just sort of still, a glimpse of what's going to come in the future. We were able to get the worlds of fitness and physiotherapists to see the potential of this for physiotherapy, for exercise and fitness. And we created a division of the company that continued to invent and pioneer in virtual fitness and in rehabilitation. And there are well over 500 different installations of this technology being used in hospitals and all sorts of different institutions around the world that are essentially engaging people and getting them incredibly physical and fit. Well, these types of applications are already showing up on the Kinect today. We're seeing all sorts of different applications in which we engage the user's body. And the interesting thing about this is that the other thing that we're doing is we're also getting the metrics. It's exactly what you're doing. The video gesture analysis is also saying what was the angle, speed, and trajectory. And all this information can be fed along with what you're doing. So, a lot of what we'll be seeing in the future as we develop our virtual sense, in other words, our ability to step into a virtual world and get our sense of coordination and dynamics. Today we see people posting videos on their social media sites in terms of the feats that they're accomplishing in the real world. Well, in the future, we're going to be seeing people posting feats of what they're accomplishing in the virtual world. But along with that, of course, will be all the metrics in terms of exactly what they were able to do. I was able to use the technology myself to become the world's first virtual reality performer. So, starting from 1986 onwards, I basically was able to take audiences around the world on journeys through virtual landscapes, playing and dancing with the animation. That's me. And playing music on unique virtual instruments. Essentially, it was like performing inside of a live music video where I was making the music live, actually though, on the video elements. And this sense of being in and interacting in the virtual landscapes and essentially virtual sets, this will end up being the types of YouTube and other video postings that people will be creating in the future. The idea that we can step into a virtual set and that we can either stream it live or record it And whether it's performance or whether it's actually creating a show, we'll be able to do it all in the virtual set. But the other dynamic, once again, because this is video, is that that video stream can come from anywhere. So we don't all have to be in the same place to be stepping into the same virtual world. And this original idea of, the importance of being able to bring people together to do this experience in the virtual world was something that we saw right from the beginning. And we took the power of video gesture control in virtual worlds along with teleconferencing, and we merged them together so that people could come together into the same virtual worlds but interact with each other from around the globe, be able to see and talk to each other, FaceTime, but at the same time, playtime or business time, or whether it's in a conference room or whatever it might be, but basically having control of interacting with the graphics all together or navigating worlds all together. Started off back actually in 1989, once again, using satellites hookups, and there was a lot of delay, but eventually by 1999, we were using the broadband internet to bring people together literally in real time over the web so that people could see and meet each other for all sorts of different types of applications. And the implications and applications of this sort of type of experience will be enormous as the World Wide Web builds itself out into a three-dimensional universe that we all end up using as something that we enter as a portal to spend time, in our daily lives doing our various activities, whether it's shopping or, whatever it is. It's the visualization, the making real of a 3D world in which we can enter. Well, this sort of dynamic as the future of social media experiences that we experience live within the media itself, live immersed in it, will come to pass. We also have seen Second Life come and go. It's one thing to have an avatar, to push it around with your mouse around the screen. It's another thing to either show up completely live or to show up inside of the avatar where the avatar does everything that you do, and you can pick things up, play with them, interact, all be able to have control of all aspects of that virtual world at the same time and be sharing that together. At some point in time, someone will create something dynamic enough that that Second Life type of experience will reemerge, but as something far more dynamic, far more engaging, far more fun, far more social. So we ended up in about 2000 getting to the point where we wanted to sort of extend this technology and do all sorts of different things with it. We wanted to take it to other markets. We wanted to bring it into consumer products. We got lucky. We had an investment group that was put together by essentially a gentleman named Bob Goodell, who was David Bowie's manager, who brought in David Bowie and the business music managers for the Rolling Stones and U2 and Sting, and they were the excellent angel investors you want to have. They really believed in the technology. They let us create all sorts of different applications. In this case, for Weather Services International, for interactive news sets and TV sets. And now there's over 250 of these stations using this type of technology around the US. We also were able to license our patents and our technologies to Sony for the iToy, for immersive gaming on that, and more recently to Microsoft for the Xbox, for Kinect-like experiences. We were able to work with Hasbro, creating an educational gaming toy that essentially let children step into their TV cartoons with their favorite characters like SpongeBob SquarePants or Blue's Clues or Dora the Explorer, and be able to interact for their learning experiences, be able to do their reading, their writing, their math, their pattern detection. And it was the perfect technology because this took the natural dynamic that children have of wanting to be engaged and be physical and get active, and it played totally into that experience. And it'll be this type of sort of immersive learning experiences that will be the way in the future children will be learning, and in a lot of cases it'll be a social experience where they'll meet up with friends in the same virtual, we call it cartoon classroom, if you want to say. Well, we also started moving the technology into other areas. By 2003, we had ported the technology onto mobile phones, and today there's over 100 million mobile phones around the world using our technology in one form or another of video gesture control. there's about 300 different applications, but they vary because in some cases it's much like an accelerometer. The optic flow that's picked up by the camera knows where it is in space. You can track it on tiny movements, but you can also track large movements. So the types of dynamics of the games really vary. Everything from golf to to tennis to bowling, and games of really control, but also for literally holding the phone and using the other hand to play, or actually to point and control to navigate through content, like swiping through media, etc. And then this, which is immersing the user right in the game, so putting the phone down. In Japan, their phones sit nicely on the table with the thing up. And so users can actually, there's a whole bunch of games where they actually can do that thing that we started back in 1986, and they can be immersed on their phones. So this will have a big impact in terms of the types of casual gaming or casual experiences that people have with their mobile devices. We also moved the technology into the digital signage and public displays, basically public installations of the technology. We had done a lot of installations of that initial technology, most of it around the world. In the major market at that point was museums and science centers, but now we were looking at how do you get this into all sorts of other places, get rid of a green screen, which we used to key people in. And so we invented, in 1998, interactive surfaces. So we are talking about interactive projections on floors and walls and windows and tables. And the applications varied very dynamically, from just pure fun, play, artistic, to a lot of branding, to a lot of different types of producing information and media. But even though it was very successful, and today there's tens of thousands of these systems all over the world, and any surface can now be interactive, and it has sort of brought signage into a whole nother realm where you don't actually have to have the physical sign. You just project from a distance. No one touches anything. Nothing gets broke. It's always been the great thing about video gesture control, is like no one really ever touches anything. Moving that, what was essentially a multi-point. We were tracking all the different points, but we weren't, in this particular case, tracking the user very specifically just to look at very specific hand movements. So we started pioneering it into multi-touch in about 2000 through 2003. So all sorts of different walls and tables that we were able to be much more dynamic in terms of the navigation. And of course, we weren't the only ones pioneering multi-touch at the time. There was a lot of other technologies that had come along that you can do multi-touch with. And that's a lot of the reason why we're seeing such a success with the proliferation of interactive digital signage in public spaces and touchscreens on all of our devices. It's because there's all sorts of different ways of doing it, and it's all these different ways are appropriate for different environments and different situations and different things you're trying to accomplish. But that will continue to evolve, and all sorts of devices will continue to evolve along with that. Luckily, though, back in '99, we had created this other way of doing it, which was to point at the screens from a distance and get that same control. And that was a really important thing, because cameras are the only thing that can actually do that at this point, is to be able to look at and get the gestures of people. And so that technology itself became very powerful, and we sold hundreds of installations where large screens, people could step back and they could point and control and literally navigate, whether it was multi-touch or single touch. But a lot of what the evolution for ourselves and for other companies has been to sort of combine technologies together, especially in public spaces, because it's just like social media. It's all about engagement and dynamic experiences. You're wanting it to be sticky, you want it to get attention. So we might want to have a window that people pass by and it reacts as they pass by. We might want to have it so that they see themselves in the screen. But we also want them to then be able to walk to the screen and then actually navigate through content, put in their name, whatever it might be. So in a lot of cases, we'll combine the gesture control to attract them in and to get them enjoy, make it an entertainment type of experience. But if we want to make it sort of either an information collection or allow them to engage in social media with that sign, we have to have a touch screen. So it's just about creating this variety of applications. So social media is growing rapidly in the digital signage world, and that's a big part of our business is public digital signage, and it's everything from, of course, like video conferencing on on signs, just meeting people up from different locations, interactive virtual fitting rooms, virtual mirrors in retail stores, and then just signs with the ability to have Twitter feeds or whatever it might be that they're doing. So I'm just going to go through some really interesting uses of digital signage for with social media. This is one that the Canadian government did for tourism in many cities. I think it was across the U.S. Creating an interactive window that was a touchscreen window with Twitter feeds. And essentially, what they were doing is they were collecting all the Twitter feeds in which anyone had been talking about visiting Canada and how much they enjoyed it. And they put this into the U.S. cities on the streets and let people come up and interact and not just obviously read the feeds, but also see the images of the locations, etc. Go back. And so this is the New York Visitor Center. We delivered 3 multi-touch tables with object recognition on them using Google Maps. So people could walk into this, which is in Times Square, put their disk down on the Google map where they wanted to search in Manhattan, choose whether they wanted restaurants or hotels or theaters or whatever. Up pops from Google all the information that's there on all the let's call it the restaurants in that area. They click on the ones they want. Up pops images, reviews, menus, whatever it might be. They can move all that they like into their folder, which of course is being carried digitally in the back room with this disk, and then they walk up to a big huge screen, put it down, and it gives them a fly-through through using Google Maps 3D through Manhattan to the locations that they've chosen. So they actually get a little wayfinding experience in real time. And of course, when they leave, they take all that on their mobile phones as well. So that was sort of a good combination. This is something for Sprint, in which we used 3D cameras. This was about 10 years ago, no, 8 years ago. 3D cameras attracted the user as they walked around. Everyone in 3D space was picked up, and a number would float around, call this number. When they called the number using, in this case, megaphone, I think it's called, as the interface for allowing them now to use their phone to control the wall. But they had all sorts of different information they could pull out. There was news feeds, there was airline schedules, there was weather, there was Twitter feeds, there was all sorts of different information that they could choose to click and pull up, and all sorts of different people could be doing it at the same time. Plus there was a more sort of general social thing if they wanted to use the wall as a paint palette. You can see in the bottom there where pressing different buttons, everyone is driving different paint sort of swashes, I guess we'll call them, and or music, so that if they could bring up the music app, and then everyone could choose to be bringing in different instruments and what volume they'd be at, and they had hundreds of choices. So it was a really engaging sign. The important thing with all of this, of course, is it has to be engaging, it has to be dynamic, and so even if it's just social media, it needs to be presented in such a way that engages the users while they're searching through it. So content is king in digital signage, because you're trying to capture people who are generally on their way somewhere. So it's very important to have things that are very interesting to experience, and of course are natural, and let them engage in ways that hadn't before. This is a really interesting application of Twitter feeds. This was a beautiful, as far as I'm concerned, piece of art, where for Intel, that this was set up where all the different Twitter feeds that were running live, they were pulling all the images and putting those images onto these blocks. And you just walked up and you looked at a block you thought was interesting, touched it, and bang, the Twitter feed pops up. And this, we'll call it a sea of blocks in the background, could be completely reconfigured so that you could pull back, and you'll see here where you're seeing waves of it. But you could actually pull it back even farther and see way into the distance. So it was a beautiful sort of way of delivering, an engagement with social media. So the most important technology that we actually invented was in 2000, and that was the use of 3D depth cameras to get a 3D depth map of the user and track their movements in 3D space. And it took our gesture control to a completely new level of gesture analysis and recognition. So it changed what we could actually do, where we could do it, and how we could let people interface with the technology. And we were able to use this for many clients. We did quite a few installations in the last 10 years, but of course the problem has been the cameras started at $20,000 10 years ago, and they've been coming down in price. And it really wasn't until the Microsoft Kinect 3D gesture camera hit the market that there was even an affordable camera. So we had high-end clients, and we did a lot of high-end things for them. But now, with the release of the Kinect, and PrimeSense has another camera, Asus, on the market for PCs, we're seeing sort of a quick revolution in gesture control. 18 million Kinects sold within a year and a half, and there's a whole bunch of other manufacturers on the market ready, coming to market for the PC, besides Microsoft releasing it for the PC. So when we started doing this 10 years ago, we were talking to all the Fortune 500 electronics manufacturers, et cetera. And they were all intrigued with the technology and what they thought they could do with it, or how they do it, and when they would do it. But nowadays, literally all those same Fortune 500 companies all know they have to have their own gesture strategy. They're all getting their own internal groups for what they're going to be doing for gesture, because they've seen the success of it. They know they're coming. They know there's a power to it, and that we're just at the beginning of that. We were able to push the boundaries in a whole bunch of different areas, including essentially surgery rooms, clean rooms, rehabilitation, disabilities, public signage, classrooms, training, presentations. I usually like to give this presentation with gesture, but I'm unfortunately not doing that today. The main area that we worked in that is going to be the most proliferation of the technology is getting it into the actual displays and the systems that we're putting in our homes. We've worked with a number of the different display manufacturers, including Hitachi, who was the first to work with us in terms of working on applications to put this into the TVs. And they weren't thinking of just letting you sit on your couch and get rid of the remote and control the TV channels. They were looking at the whole smart home. So in other words, controlling your temperature, controlling your lights, controlling your appliances, answering your phone, surfing the web, controlling social media. And the other great thing about it is though, you'd think, well, that's, going to do a lot of sitting and doing that. But of course, this whole technology allows you at any point in time to get up and do things and get far more engaged. But if you just think through in terms of the nature of navigating social media in the future, you just have to think of Tom Cruise in Minority Report in terms of that, the way he was able to go through his videos as just one of the dynamics of that. Well, these manufacturers aren't just thinking of this as something that we're going to do on a 30, 40, or 60-inch TVs in high def or 3D. They're actually looking at whole portals in our houses, in our homes, or in our offices. And they know the technology is going to be cheap enough for them to do that with either projection or flat screens. And they're seeing these portals as, these displays as portals into other worlds that will use 3D gesture control to be able to interact with. And of course, the things that we'll be doing with them will be, life-size meeting of other people, whether we're doing a shared virtual clothes fitting with our friends. There's a great company on the market now that has this whole Tri-Mirror, they're in Toronto. Great use of the Kinect to completely track you and find your perfect dimensions, to put clothing on you that has really nice flow. So it's coming rather rapidly. Virtual classrooms, virtual conference rooms, and just a whole slew of types of applications that we can meet up with each other and sort of meet eye to eye, share a smile, share our social media experiences. Well, we've also been working with a lot of the mobile device companies, the tablets and the laptop companies, and the phones. Obviously, it's not happening this year, but soon we're going to start seeing 3D gesture control coming to our mobile devices. And it could be the types of things that we're seeing with the Kinect, which is either time of flight or structured light sort of infrared, but it could be other technologies. There's other ways of doing it. Stereo ultrasound, stereo resonance of picking up our heat or our electrical charge. There's all sorts of ways of doing this, and basically they're going to find the cheapest way, because in this case, all they're trying to find is you right in front and what you're doing in close to your device. We've been working with the car manufacturers, Ford and many other companies, to deliver them gesture control in the cars, to control the dashboards, to control our mobile devices while we're driving so that we can focus on the road and just do gestures off to the side. But we've also been seeing this sort of proliferating. There's a lot of people working on this now that the Connect is out, a lot of people getting a hold of it, work on robotics, CAD-CAM, 3D design, flying helicopters, literally, sort of toy helicopters with cameras on them. So, our videos that we'll be producing will be literally, where we flew and the video of what we saw, today with our gesture-controlled flying toy helicopters, that kind of thing. But what's happening is there's a lot going on. There's hundreds and thousands, I guess the word would be better, thousands of applications that are being created right now because Microsoft hasn't actually released it officially for PCs. So everything that's being created and the things that are being done to the other cameras are just all starting to come to market now. We'll see some of them, very soon because Microsoft's going to, bring it over and be official on the PCs. But yeah, there's a whole dynamic to what is coming. Now, I just want to show this video because, to me, it's taking it too far. This is a joke. This is essentially someone's concept, of social media, gesture control gone mad in the future.
Contact team. Fill kettle with 2 hot place 1 PG tips tea bag in a clean mug. Good. Now get the skim milk from the refrigerator.
So you get the basic idea of that. Yeah. Well, the important thing to remember here is that we're really just at the beginning. I mean, we've been doing this for 25 years, but in terms of it getting out into the hands of sort of the development community as a whole, in terms of the technology getting to market, we're just at the beginning. In fact, the 3D cameras that are on the market today are very low in resolution. They're actually lower than, in terms of resolution, of like 320, 240, as opposed to normal video itself is 640, 480. But what is going to happen, and what is going to happen very soon, is that the 3D depth cameras will become higher in resolution, and they'll just keep getting higher, so that they'll be able to measure our gestures in far more minute and specific ways. And of course, the types of gesture analysis and control that we can do will improve dramatically. And of course, so will the applications and the nature of the types of things that we'll be developing for that. And new and unique ways for us to step up and into the virtual world and to gesture through our social media into the future.
All right, on that note, are we on?
Thank you.
The mic turned on. So on that note, I want to give a big round of applause to Vincent. As someone who actually, 14 years ago, got to go to when it was still Vivid Group and play with some of that technology, I was having flashbacks at the beginning. It was it was just so cool. And where we've come today, and that's where I think, as a final summary for this event, we're in the infancy of the online social media marketing space. As much as we think it's maturing, we're at the infancy. And with gesture control, after 25 years, and we've been doing this for 6, 7, so let's see how far they've come and imagine where we're going to be in 25 years. So when we leave it today, think of that. Right into my beginning, we're going to be out there building these great social media, social campfires, bringing people together. And think about your audience. Do you need to integrate gesture control? I love that Intel one. And thanks, Sean, for finding the YouTube link. Share this. This is the future of where we're going. Yes, it's nothing like being physically in the same room with people, but some of the future, we don't know where it's going to take us. So thanks, Vincent. And reception, I guess, is open now, Stuart?
Yep.
Well, you can see his title there. Co-CEO, President, Co-founder of GestureTek.